this patient comes in later in the evening. I'm working the later shift at the urgent care, and she has a laceration, like a big cut right above her eye, and her upper left cheek is like, she's in so much pain, I can tell. So normally the medical assistants are the ones who are triaging the patients, figuring out what's wrong before they present it to me. But I felt like, let me take this one on. So I sit with her and I ask her what's going on. She says she got into an altercation. Normally I don't push any further, but I could tell that she was lying through her teeth. And it's not about being nosy, but it's about making sure I actually know what's going on so I can offer the correct treatment and the correct resources. Eventually, I'm able to figure out that she was in a domestic violence incident. If I remember correctly, it was her boyfriend. Doesn't live with her, but somehow, some way they ended up crossing paths and this happened. Domestic violence comes with such shame for women, and one obvious measure of that was how difficult it was to get her to tell me, even though she knew. I can't report it without her permission because she is an adult and there were no children or elderly individuals who are in danger. So obviously we offer to present it to law enforcement. So I stitch her up. I think I sent her for a CT to evaluate if she had a fracture of her cheek. X-rays are not always the best at identifying fractures of the face. I then gave her the resources for the domestic violence hotline and instructions on what to do if she wanted to move forward with any law enforcement involvement. I think part of what moves me here is like, when you get into medicine, you don't go in expecting to deal with such real raw issues, and to have to be there while your patients confront such pain and trauma. So it's very humbling because while we're trained in what to do medically, I can treat her injury very well, and I know exactly what to do there. You're not always trained on what to do human to human. And the biggest lesson I learned with these situations is everyone will do what they need to do when they're ready, and my job is just to present the options. I can't push or force. So 2 patients, they're twins, they're 4 years old. These kids come in all the time, they get sick all the time. They're twins, they're up in each other's faces, they're constantly coughing on each other. And so the poor mom, she has, I forgot how many kids she had, but she would always bring them in, and then there are 2 older siblings who would also always get sick because of them. I remember, I'd seen them enough times to where the parents and I have a relationship, and I've treated the parents for things, but they're running up and down. One of them specifically is running up and down the hall, being loud, and eventually we get them into a room. And one of my medical assistants say something that a lot of people would say in that situation which is, why doesn't the mom get a hold of her kids? And I laughed because I realized that that medical assistant fell into the same trap that so many of us fall into. So on the outside, they just seem like 4-year-olds who are misbehaving and running around in a setting that's not appropriate. But to me, who knows them and very easily could tell, they're both autistic and on the spectrum, and the one who was running up and down the halls was way more on the spectrum. That was part of the reason. He doesn't get social cues. He doesn't think that he's doing anything inappropriate. And at one point, as a parent of a child who's autistic, and you realize that there are just certain things your kids are going to do that trying to stop them from doing is going to end up leading to a tantrum, or they just don't understand. This kid too, he's adorable. God, he had a fixation with water. So one thing we would do anytime we got him in the room is I would turn on the sink and just let him play with the water as I examined his brother. You never know the details of people's lives. And I'm someone, I have to work on this too. A lot of us do. We don't always know the details of our lives, and sometimes the behaviors that individuals exhibit is a result of things we just don't understand, and it's not just bad behavior, it's just different. Every medical provider has that one patient that completely changed the way you looked at medicine, and this is mine. I was walking in at the start of a shift, and there was a patient who was probably in her 70s sitting on the chair in the waiting room, and she did not look good. I mean, she looked fatigued, she looked distressed, she looked like she was having difficulty breathing. Fun fact, our physical exam, our examination of you starts when you first walk in. We're watching you walk, we're watching the way you breathe, we're watching the way you talk like little creeps. It's the first part of the physical exam. Eventually get her in, and her pulse ox, or her oxygen level, is at, like, it was the low 80s, and that already is alarming enough and enough of a reason to be sent to the emergency room. I test her for COVID and she tests positive. At that point, there's nothing else to do. Sending her home would be, without a doubt, a death sentence. She needed to be sent to the emergency room, and she almost with 100% certainty was going to be admitted. She had other underlying health conditions. Now that would be fine and dandy, except for the fact that this was during the pandemic, where hospitals were not allowing guests. They were not allowing anyone to come in with you, and the patient did not speak any English. So I knew how stressful and how difficult it would be for her to be in a situation where she couldn't even communicate with the staff, and the staff is already overwhelmed with so much that's going on. A few months later, I come in for another shift, and I see this woman who is sitting there, and she looks very familiar, and she kind of gives me a soft smile. And I look at her and I'm like, "You look very familiar. Do I know you from somewhere?" She says, "Yes, a few months ago you saw my mom. She ended up having COVID and we went to the hospital. It was that woman's daughter. The daughter had come with her to the initial appointment." And then she let me know that a week later, her mother ended up passing away from the complications of COVID. And that hit hard. There are very few times that patient interactions made me cry, but after that one, I definitely had to take a moment and step away. The thing about practicing medicine is that a lot of people will do it with motives of prestige and money, but nothing prepares you for the life-changing decisions that you have to make. And even when the decision is the right decision, the weighing of risks and benefits is very, very heavy. I think we often underestimate the weight of those decisions.